we've got stuff to talk about. We've got to talk about Bernie made me white. We have to talk about the Arizona hearing that they just had. I want to talk to today. I'm having a live interview with Sean King. He'll be joining us in a few minutes, and we'll be discussing just race in this election, justice issues, criminal justice reform, just different things we'll be talking about. He's very well, you know, Sean King. I don't have to introduce him, and he'll introduce himself when he comes on. Then after that, we'll be joined by Leslie Lee III. He is known on Twitter as Tokyo Vampires. That's it. I had to think about it for a second, but he'll be joining us to discuss the hashtag that he started yesterday, Bernie made me white, which has caused quite a bit of a stir, quite a bit of a, well, everything is controversial. So when I say controversial, I don't think it's controversial at all. I think it made a very poignant point. But of course, some people think that it's it's controversial. But first, I want to talk about the voter suppression in Arizona. And I want to start by saying that I have been wrong before, and maybe, just maybe, it looks like I was wrong about Arizona. We don't know the numbers. We don't know the total effect of the voter suppression, but we do know that there are a lot of people. They held a special hearing today. There are a lot of people who are infuriated about their opportunity to be to vote being taken away from them in one form or another. We discussed the different forms of suppression on last week. We talked about the fact that they cut it down from 600 precincts to 400 precincts, now to 70 precincts. It's just, they completely, or 60 rather, they gutted the precincts in Arizona. They, you know, impossible for people to get a chance to vote. Different shenanigans from them calling the race before even 1% had turned out, people leaving line, just a lot of things that we've seen historically take place. The voter suppression in terms of cutting the number of precincts, that's something new that came to us by virtue of the Voting Rights Act being gutted. But regardless, there are a lot of people who are disenfranchised, and they made their voices known today in the special hearing that they had in Arizona. And just some highlights from it. It was an interesting thing to see, particularly because so many eyes were on it. And you heard it from both the left and the right. You heard from the GOP. You heard it from people who wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders. People really feeling disenfranchised in a very genuine way. Every person that got a chance to speak only spoke for 2 minutes, and they held to that pretty firmly. It was obvious that there was some type of manipulation going on. And perception is reality. Like, that's something that we talk about in my job. No matter what you believe, perception is reality. Let me say that. If the people feel disenfranchised, that is what matters, because they are the people, we the people. And so we can't just dismiss it and say all of these incidents are just are simply anecdotal or conspiracy theory. If you have a large swath of voters who feel this disenfranchised, then that becomes reality, and that reality becomes acted on. And so it's incumbent on the leadership there in Arizona to actually do something about this, because if they don't do something about it, then the voters who felt disenfranchised, they will act on their reality, and they will take it up in the next election. So people were quoted as waiting in line for over 5 hours, coming back 3 or 4 times to try to vote. I mean, the stories were pretty atrocious. Many said that a lot of the voters disenfranchised were Bernie Sanders supporters, and we discussed that already. Also, many of the poorest served polling places were in a minority area, in minority areas of Phoenix, meaning some of the places that were shut down and disenfranchised the most represented minority communities. We've talked about that extensively. Also verified situations where voter registrations had been switched from the old party affiliation to some other party on both Democratic and GOP voter information. We talked about this, right? So you had people showing up ready to vote as Democrats, or vote in, I don't really care about the Republican side. Let's just talk about the Democratic side. They registered as Democrats. They may have previously been independents. Some of them had been Democrats all their lives. and they were now registered as something else, some other party. And because of the closed primaries, they were unable to vote. These are the stories that are coming out. And like I said, perception is reality. This happened to people. They felt like this happened to them, and they are going to act on it. So again, it is in Arizona's best interest. Just a couple other things from that, from the special hearing. There was also groundswell of how independents were being left out in the cold. You know, as a closed primary, that's what happens. That's how it goes down. One thing that stood out was the overall feeling that the whole meeting was lip service. That's what you took away from this. You know, you really felt as though it was just this thing where they gave you a chance to voice your anger, and people allowing you to voice your anger is sometimes a very deceptive and manipulative tool, because it gives the appearance that you're doing something, but in actuality, you're not doing anything. Which begs the question, what is the solution to this? You know, to extend voting would be kind of problematic, in my opinion. To do a complete do-over, I don't know how feasible that actually is. What is the actual solution to this? And this is not coming from a pessimistic point of view. Something should be done, but what? You know, how do you fix this? You know, how do you fix it for this time around? We know how to fix it for the next time around. We know that the Voting Rights Act needs to be reinstated. We know that any type of significant change like they made needs to be approved by the Justice Department, especially when those changes, according to Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, those changes directly affect minority communities disproportionately. So that portion needs to be reinstated. We do know the precincts need to be opened back up. But what do we do for this election? And that really speaks volumes in terms of how important it is for us not to be reactionary, but rather to be proactive. Because one of these things, really, the Voting Rights Act and the gutting of it, of Section 5, that's been in front of us for over a year. And we are just now seeing the effects of that really hit home. And now we're being reactionary because we see how bad those effects are. But all this time we could have been doing more. Like we could have hit the ground harder. Like it's not going to be something easy to get it reinstated. And I don't want to understate how difficult it will be to get Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act reinstated. However, where was the action before Arizona? That action has to take place. And so now we're on this side of it. It could have very well, listen, Hillary Clinton won by 18 points. My entire argument last week was I just don't believe that there was 18 points worth of suppression. However, I'll eat my own argument at this point. The number of people who showed up, the number of people, the scale of the fallout from Arizona is such that it could move by a significant margin. But how do we do that? How do we fix it? How do we go back to how do we do that at this point? You know, at this point, can we simply let people go and vote? Do we do the whole thing over? The real solution is we should have been proactive on the gutting of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act in the first place. But now on this side of Arizona, we know damn well we have to make sure that if nothing else, Section 5 gets reinstated. I don't know what else to say about Arizona. We'll see. Hopefully that meeting won't just be lip service, but a lot of times when you give people a chance to voice their opinion, that's just a way of them calming the masses. But hopefully that fire and that anger and that energy is going to transcend much further than what happened in this meeting on today. All right, folks, I have been joined by Shaun King. Shaun, one